Today we're going to talk about a mistake that almost everyone who trains makes, even those who train with intensity, even those who reach muscle failure. It's a silent, subtle mistake, but one that can completely halt your progress, even if you're doing everything else right. Mike Mentzer saw it everywhere. In beginners, in advanced athletes, and even in professional bodybuilders. And he said it bluntly. This is the real reason why most people never reach their maximum muscle development. It has nothing to do with doing more sets. It has nothing to do with trendy routines. It has to do with how you perform each repetition, and whether you're truly stimulating the muscle, or just moving weight without purpose. If you've ever felt like you train hard but don't see the results you expect, this chapter will open your eyes. Because when you fix this mistake, everything in your training will start to make sense. And before we begin, if this video adds value for you, helps you better understand what you're doing in the gym, and inspires you to train with more awareness, more truth, and the real philosophy of men, then I ask you for 3 simple things. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next chapters, like the video if this message resonated with you, and hit the bell so YouTube notifies you as soon as we upload the next episode. This content isn't easy to make. It takes time, study, and above all, a commitment to the truth. No embellishments, no marketing, and no empty promises. Your support helps us keep spreading this message, so thank you, bro. Now, let's get started with the chapter. The silent mistake that ruins your results. Mike Mentzer was direct when he spoke about the most common and costly mistake he saw in gyms. It's not a lack of effort, it's a lack of concentration, a lack of connection with what you're doing, and that changes everything. Most people who train, even those following the heavy-duty method, make a fatal mistake. They don't perform each repetition with total intention. They focus on moving the weight, but not on directly stimulating the muscle they want to work. They might be training to failure. They might be resting well. They might be eating right. But if there isn't a direct and conscious connection with the muscle in every repetition, then that effort isn't creating the right stimulus. What does this mean in practice? Imagine this. You're doing incline bench press for your chest. You unrack the bar, lower the weight quickly, push it up, feel pressure. But who's doing the work? Is it your chest carrying the tension? Or are your shoulders, triceps, or even momentum driving the movement? Mentzer said most bodybuilders didn't fail because they were lazy, but because they were distracted. They think they're training hard, but they're not training with precision. They're moving weight, not building muscle. And that's a mental bomb, bro. The difference between lifting weight and training to grow. Lifting weight is a physical action. Training to grow is a mental and physical action. Simultaneously, Mentzer understood this better than anyone. He said every repetition should feel like an exercise in control, not demonstration. That's why he talks so much about the principle of continuous tension, controlled tempo, and not letting inertia steal the stimulus. Because if the weight moves due to momentum, rebound, or habit, the target muscle doesn't receive the punishment it needs to adapt. That's why he said, every repetition should be like a surgical scalpel, precise, controlled, lethal. The mind is part of training. This is where many fail without realizing it. They're physically present but mentally absent. They're counting reps but aren't inside each rep. They're thinking about how many are left but don't feel what the muscle is doing right now. Mentzer insisted, if your mind isn't on the muscle, then you're not training that muscle. You're just moving a load. This is the silent mistake. Training on autopilot. Training out of routine, doing sets like tasks to complete, not as tools to provoke adaptation. And the worst part is, you might be training hard, but without effective stimulation, that effort is wasted energy. The symptoms of the invisible mistake. Mentzer observed several symptoms that revealed if someone was training without real connection. Movement too fast. They lower the weight as if trying to get rid of it. Repetitions without control. No breaking in the negative. No maintained tension. Explosive tempo without purpose. They confuse intensity with speed. Distracted gaze. They're doing the set but thinking about something else. General fatigue but no real muscle pump. They finish sweaty but not pumped where they should be. He said if you finished a set and didn't know exactly which part of your body was punished, then it wasn't an effective set. True effectiveness. Quantity does not equal intensity. Heavy duty was never about doing more. It was always about doing better. And that doesn't just include how many sets you do, but how you do them. One set to failure can be worth more than 10 poorly executed sets. But only if that set is done with control, total mental focus, strict technique, uninterrupted tension, absolute effort, to the point where the muscle can't go on. Even if your mind wants to. That's heavy duty. That's Mentzer. And that's what very few truly apply. How to fix the invisible mistake. Conscious execution and real heavy-duty technique. Mike Mentzer put it bluntly. The muscle doesn't respond to movement. It responds to precisely directed muscular effort. And that changes everything. It's not just about lifting. It's about training with surgical intent, rep after rep. Here's how to fix the most common mistake, from the ground up. Step 1. Slow down. The first rule to reconnect mind and muscle is this. Lower the speed. Mentzer always repeated. The ideal tempo was for seconds on the negative and 1 to 2 seconds on the positive. Why? because going slow eliminates momentum. And when there's no momentum, the muscle can't hide from the work. Plus, the negative phase is where the most muscle fiber damage occurs. So if you rush it, you're losing the most productive part of the entire workout. If you perform the repetition so fast that you can't feel the muscle, then the muscle isn't feeling you either. Step 2. Focus your entire mind on the muscle. Don't start a set without first visualizing the target muscle. If you're training chest, think about your pectorals contracting before lifting the weight. Imagine them stretching, shortening, and during the repetition, your mind should be inside the muscle, as if directing it from within. This isn't mystical, it's physiological. The mind-muscle connection activates more motor units, and that activates more fibers, which equals more stimulus, equals more growth. Mentzer compared it to surgery. If you're going to operate, you need precision. If you're going to train, you do too. Step 3. Maintain continuous tension. Another principle Mike strongly defended was this: don't let tension disappear during the set. How does tension escape? When you lock out joints at the top, when you rest the weight at the bottom, when the bar or dumbbells bounce, when form breaks and other muscles steal the load. Your mission is to maintain constant tension from the first rep to failure. Every inch of the movement must have purpose, no dead zones, no rest points. Everything is work. Everything is punishment. Everything is stimulation. Step 4. Observe and correct yourself. Don't train blindly. Record yourself. Use the mirror. Check your execution. Ask yourself, is my tempo controlled or rushed? Am I feeling the muscle or just general fatigue? Am I pushing with my back or my chest? Is the muscle activated from the first second? Can I maintain tension without losing form? Mike believed in constant self, not because he was a perfectionist, but because he knew progress depended on quality, not quantity. Step 5. One set, but perfect. You don't need 5 sets if you do one that gives everything. Heavy duty is based on this. 1 set per exercise to real muscle failure with perfect technique, with continuous tension, with absolute mental focus. And if you do that correctly, not only do you not need more, but doing more could be counterproductive. Mentzer was clear. The only set that builds muscle is the one that takes the muscle beyond its momentary capacity. The rest are unnecessary. How a real heavy-duty set feels. Did you fail or just give up? Mike Mentzer was uncompromising. There's no progress without sufficient stress. And that stress isn't reached if you stop before the real point of muscle failure. Many think they've reached failure, when what they really did was give up when it hurt, when it burned, when the repetition became But real muscle failure, the kind that builds mass, strength, and character, is a point beyond pain and fatigue. What does the body feel in a real heavy-duty set? The muscle contraction becomes incomplete. You push but the bar doesn't move. Even if your mind screams, the muscle doesn't respond. The pain isn't just burning, it's total resistance. Every millimeter becomes an internal battle, as if your body says, I can't anymore, and your mind says, give me one more. You can't maintain perfect form beyond the critical point. On the last rep, your muscles tremble, your breathing is ragged, and yet you fight to keep control. Your mind empties, focusing only on surviving that last rep. You're not thinking about anything else. You're 100% present. You're there, at war with the weight. Mentzer said a good heavy-duty set was like entering a pressure chamber. It's not pleasant, but that's where adaptation happens. How do you know if you've reached real failure? Mentzer gave several signs. You attempted one last rep with all your will, but couldn't complete it with strict form. Your breathing accelerated like you'd run 100 meters. You felt the muscle no longer responding. Not just that it hurt when you let go of the weight. There was a mix of relief and emptiness. You knew nothing was left, and most importantly, you couldn't repeat that set. Even if offered money, that's failure. That's heavy duty. That's truth. And one set like that is worth more than 10 poorly done ones. What happens next? A real heavy-duty set isn't repeated, not because you don't want to, but because you don't need to. That level of stimulation is so profound that the muscle is damaged enough for the body to say, that was too much. I have to adapt, I have to get stronger, or next time, I won't survive. And that process is what builds muscle mass. Not volume, not chronic fatigue, not time in the gym, but brutal, precise, directed, real stimulus. The internal shift when you learn to execute like this. When every repetition becomes an act of intention and focus. You no longer train like the average person. You no longer go to the gym to do something. You go to provoke change. Mentzer called it the awakening of the rational bodybuilder. When you stop doing what everyone else does and start thinking, feeling, and executing every rep as if it were your last, that's when, bro, you stop being an amateur and become someone who truly trains to grow. Now, bro, the real enemy isn't a lack of desire. It's not the routine, the gym, or genetics either. The invisible enemy halting progress is disconnection. That lack of real intention, control, focus, purpose, that turns a set into just a mechanical movement instead of an act of transformation. Mike Mentzer didn't design heavy duty just so you'd train less. He did it so you'd train better, with more awareness, more logic, more precision. And he made it clear, one well executed set can provoke more growth than hours of misdirected work. If you fix this mistake, If you truly connect with every repetition, if you make every set an act of absolute focus, the muscle has no choice but to grow. Because you're not training out of habit, you're training with reason, with science, with truth, and that, bro, is what separates those who just lift weights from those who build their bodies with purpose. Next episode, Chapter 9, The Invisible Volume, How Mental Stress Also Stops You From Growing. Yes, you read that right. In the next episode, we'll bust a myth almost no one dares to touch, and one Mike Mentzer warned about indirectly many times, that rest isn't just physical, but also mental and nervous. And if your nervous system is overloaded, stressed, or exhausted, even if your training is perfect, you won't grow. This is called the invisible volume. You don't see it, you don't count it in sets, but it's there, and it's draining your ability to recover and progress. Mentzer spoke about the importance of the nervous system, mental clarity, and rational focus as part of training. And in this chapter, we'll take that foundation to show you how emotional stress can halt muscle growth. Poor sleep is just as bad as poor training. Not fully resting is like training without purpose. And how to create a mental environment that favors hypertrophy, not burnout. Why should you watch that episode? Because you can do everything right in the gym. But if your mind is saturated, if your nervous system is fried, if you're not respecting mental rest, then your body won't respond. This chapter will change how you see rest, because muscle grows in silence, and if that silence is filled with mental noise, growth isn't possible. Because the next episode won't just make you train better, it'll teach you to live like a true rational athlete.